Support for the podcast comes from the Social Enrichment Center in Media, Pennsylvania. The SEC was founded to support individuals, families, schools, and community organizations. Their objective is to build the self-confidence and social connectedness of children, adolescents, and young adults. SEC provides direct care to young people, utilizing evidence-based therapeutic and instructional strategies. Their team equips caregivers with developmentally appropriate skills and strategies to build each client's social competencies. In addition to socially and behaviorally focused dyads and group therapies, they offer individual psychotherapy, individual social skills therapy, as well as several related services on site, at schools, and in the home. Therapy sessions are available in group or individual format for clients ages 2 to 25. They're contracted with a speech and language pathologist and an occupational therapist who provide these services on site. Learn more about the Social Enrichment Center at socialenrichmentcenter.com. Hello, and welcome back to Parenting Stuff I Wish I Knew Sooner and Want You to Know Now. I am your host, Erica Desper, founder of the Center for Confident Parenting and a mom who seemed to learn everything I needed to know the hard way. I'm on a mission to help others learn these things sooner and more easily. And to that end, today my guest is Lynn Fuller, the founder of College Flight Path. Lynn, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I am excited. I was telling you before we hit record, it's like embarrassing to say, but I know nothing about this process. I know nothing about college. It was not on my path. I mean, some community college, but I have a son who's approaching the age where we need to think about it. And I'm just really excited to have you because everything about parenting is overwhelming and this overwhelms me as well. So thank you for your time. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself and then what brought you to this work.
So I'll try to surmise it because there's a lot of steps that got me to this place. As an undergrad, I worked as a tour guide and I was always the admissions office. And prior to that, I saw 42 colleges before I picked one because I was a recruited Division I athlete. So I kept swimming at some various schools where they would host, these swim meets. So my parents would then out on a tour and talk to a coach and go see an info session. And it all started very early. So when it came to actually seeing schools, it was never sort of this truncated look in junior year. It was spread out kind of more, I would say, organically over time. And then I graduated from college. I started working as a consultant for a company, Arthur Anderson, who no longer exists, sadly. And there was a big thing that happened with the company that I had nothing to do with. But anyway, I got laid off and I used the money in my severance package to pay to go back to grad school and finish my teaching degree and started teaching straight away. And I was tutoring SAT, always looking for a side hustle because our teachers are so woefully underpaid and under-resourced and not loved. And so my side hustle was test prep. And very naturally, families started asking me about your college process. How did that go about as a recruited athlete? How did that go for you as an applicant? How did you figure out sort of the things that you wanted to study? I have a wide variety of interests academically. So trying to find a focus that could be a passionate love for work, but then also have these other sort of side interests that I could feed and foster for myself. Right, and then I spent 10 years in the classroom. And then I decided I was done being in the classroom and I loved my classroom work, but it's all of the other mandates that happen when you're a teacher that make the work of teaching very little and make the work of paperwork very big. And so in 2010, I incorporated and left and pivoted and scaled my company at that time. So I really got into college counseling 20 years ago, but officially leaving to do this thing full time 14 years ago. And then in the last 8 months, I hired additional folks to help me on this journey. So
that's awesome. I love it. Everyone has a story of how they came to it, and I love to hear that. So if someone's never heard of College Flight Path, what sorts of things are you helping students or parents with?
So where we start first is with a 4-year academic plan. And as your child is sort of getting ready to enter high school, it is looking at the academic wants and interests and trying to identify how you can align the coursework, clubs, activities, extracurriculars to feed that life. So again, having your academic interests, but also have, maybe some other sub academic interests or sub career choices that are fed. So what I like to do is to look at what have they done? What have they enjoyed? What don't they enjoy? How can we maximize their enjoyment in a traditional structure, whatever that structure looks like? Is that half day at a traditional public school? Is that half day at a technical school? Is that then eventually merging over to more of a technical program? Is that utilizing maybe some of the allied health programs, right? Which is more structured to like learn some of the techniques that they would, as a nursing aide or something like that, or in nursing or as a potential medical professional, once they kind of get into the upper levels of high school. So really checking in with the mentorship piece of what are your likes, what are your dislikes, what are your needs, what are your executive function skills, how can we improve upon those? So that's number one, the 4-year plan and our mentorship piece of that. The second is then your post-secondary planning. So the name of my company is maybe a misnomer, but I know that people are listening to this podcast because we talked about the word college in it, right? So
Yeah.
how do we then plan for people beyond high school? So is that 2-year? Is that 4-year college? Is that an apprenticeship program? There is actually a College of the Building Arts in Charleston, South Carolina, which is a 4-year accredited college program, but it's based on the apprenticeship program that grew out of France for master iron workers and plasters and woodworkers. It's actually really cool. So
That's so
I
cool.
think
So it's not like your
yeah,
program's just for people that know they want to do like the full, like 4-year college and go from, it's like planning regardless of what that next step is going to be.
correct. And
Yeah.
I would say with the intention of exposure to career path very early, with the fact that you can grow and change. I just went back and got a master's in school counseling and mental health in the pandemic because I needed more attending skills for my students. So knowing that that is going to be organic and you're going to figure out these different skills and they're going to grow with you, but how can I kind of launch you on that first step so you can feel really successful in gaining the skills in that first job or that first experience or that first training program or that first college major, and then that will help you with your next steps. So that intentional reverse planning, right? Like what's the goal and then how can we plan it backwards?
Right?
We
Reverse
also do test
engineering.
prep, career counseling. Yes, reverse engineering. So yeah. So
Awesome.
we also do post-secondary success. So once you get to wherever you're going, rebuilding all those scaffolds so you can be super successful, career
Okay.
counseling. And then I also consult with schools, parents, other independent consultants, people like me who just try to help them up level, their approach to all of this.
And that brings up a question I didn't prep you for. Hopefully that's okay. Uh,
It's okay.
you mentioned this scaffolding, and I know, even though I haven't hit this stage yet, I'm in a lot of parent, groups, and I know I've heard of people saying, I sent my kid off to college and they just kind of fell apart at first. I mean, I know that first year and first experience is really a tough adjustment. Some get through it, some do not. But I think those of us who have had to do more scaffolding for our kids at home, there's always this like pull of, well, the more I do for him and with him, the less he'll be prepared, but he also needs to be successful now. So it sounds like, and I'm sure you can, confirm this, a lot of kids aren't as prepared as they need to be to launch into college, or the same supports are not available. Or can you give an example when you use the word scaffolding? What are some of the things that you're helping get set up that they need?
Yes. So I think of what are the things that you have at home that will be not available to you when you go to college, right? So you are the daily reminder system. You are the external executive function drive. So,
I am.
is there a code? Yes. And you know what? We're not born with those skills. Some people latch onto them innately. Sometimes they have different organizational systems that work with them, you know, and they find it themselves. Sometimes there's a little bit of like older siblings that they're watching that they see become successful and adopt some of those skills. And sometimes we lack them completely. Um, I I loved my Trapper Keeper, so I always had.
Keeper.
You remember? Flip, flip.
I
It was the best.
absolutely,
So,
we are dating ourselves,
so
but yes, I do.
that's okay. So I'm totally obsessed with my Trapper Keeper and totally obsessed with writing all my notes down. But I really, there were things that I just didn't have success with in middle school and high school, and I wasn't the best student. Like I think everybody looks at me and they're like, "Gosh, you're like you really know what you're doing." I'm like,
Right.
"Now I do, but I didn't then." And I don't have older siblings, so I didn't have somebody to model that for me. So I think when we know that we are servicing our children by daily reminders or a family shared calendar, or there's a note set, right, that you kind of ping to them to make sure that certain tasks are getting done or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
That is not going to be there when they go to college. They have to do that for themselves. And if they don't have that skill, either it's worth connecting with a post secondary success coach, an executive function coach, or if they do have an IEP or 504, ensuring that there is a check in with some sort of mentor, counselor, coach multiple times a week to ensure that they are getting done what they need to get done. The second piece
Excellent.
of heading off to college is reverse calendar. It is my favorite thing to do. So when you get
There was so
Trapper
much in
Keeper
that
all over me,
pause. You're excited.
so excited. I nerd out. So I have a color coded calendar. It keeps track of what is my time doing test prep with students? What is my time doing college counseling? What is my time doing 4-year academic planning, career counseling? Every single subset for me is color coded. So I then am triggered by the color, knowing what I did with that particular client. For a student, if they can get their syllabus, which is handed to them day one, and they sit down with their entire calendar and they work backwards from final exams and schedule out their entire semester and color code it based on big assignments that are due, the type of class that it is, they then see when their heavy weeks exist. And if they can then try to figure out, oh my gosh, I've got to really work on this project a week or two before because I'm going to have two major midterms or quarterly exams or whatever they call them at the school, then they know how they can sort of plan ahead because it's all given to them. So that's number two.
Yep.
Number three is, what are your mental health supports?
Mm.
And what's your mental health structure? Are you moving your body? Are you eating good food? Are you sleeping? And are you
Is
talking to
that even a
somebody?
thing in college now?
It's a
Do they do
choice.
that in college? I know it's all pizza
I mean,
and weight gain. Maybe
I
not for the
guess
athlete.
so. Maybe I don't know. I was eating, like, I was trying to eat healthy. Like, definitely, it's a choice. I think all of that's a choice, right?
It's good to
So,
at least think it through.
yeah. Yeah. Are you feeling like sludge? Well, what did you put in your body the day before?
Exactly. Hmm.
Right? So I think that's really important. My friend January Staten, who is a fabulous post-secondary coach, she works with us. She always says, who's on your board of directors to help you scaffold? Who do you trust to talk to? And what boundaries do you set to talk to them? So, like the family relationship, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday morning. I need like proof of life. We have 30-minute check ins. I'll tell you everything that's going on. If I need advice, I'm going to tell you if I need you to give me advice or I just need you to listen to me. Right. And she's really great about that. And then who's your mental health support? Who's your best friend that you can lean on? Who's a trusted person on campus? Who's your advisor? Right? These are your scaffolds. Like, so if you can identify all that before you go, you're not going to fall flat on your face.
And it sounds like everyone can benefit from this. So we talked about kids who have, 504 hours, IEPs. I want to dig into that a little bit later. But even maybe the most, I always say I have excellent executive functioning skills. But at the start, it may be helpful to see, like, here's how I could go about this. And then those people are probably going to take it on themselves more easily, more quickly, whereas maybe other students need the scaffolds in place for longer. So is that true that really anyone considering this path could benefit from post-secondary coaching?
I think to know how to design your life so then that way you can find your downtimes and your uptimes, I think that is really important because it's a totally different schedule. High school's a shopping mall. You're in this class for 45 minutes, you're in that class for 45 minutes.
Yep.
Sometimes you block scheduling, you're there for 90 minutes and there for 90 minutes, and halfway through the year, all of your classes change, right?
Right.
I would say that your typical class schedule is just very, 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 I don't want to use the word high stress, but I would say like it's very distracting, right? Because like third period you have math and fourth period you have physics and fifth period you have English class and then sixth period you have history and maybe first period was gym and second period was cooking. Like it's just you change your attention so quickly. Whereas in
Right.
college, you may have 2 or 3 classes a day.
Right.
So what are you doing between the time? How do you maximize your time? How do you schedule in your
Especially if you're
downtime?
someone who loses track of time easily, right?
Right. So it's again that those people who can support you and understand what that world is like to then help you reverse schedule and then the space between what does that look like if you can plan your weeks out in advance of like I'm going to go work out because I need to move my body before I sit in an afternoon class so my brain is on
Yeah.
or it's a sunny day I need fit
Yeah.
I I need to get outside and not be on my phone and just enjoy some sunshine so I can have a really positive mindset for the day. So, like,
Yeah.
whatever those habits are, I think is really important.
As a
There's
parent
something
hearing
that,
this,
oh, sorry, again.
oh, sorry. I was going to say, as a parent, it sounds like such a relief to know that someone could be doing this for and with my student, and it would not be me. And as a student, a young adult, I imagine the relief would be similar. Like, mom, get off my back. I want to go be independent. But, or and I still need like some of those supports. I just don't want them to come from you because this is my first, venture into the world. So it's so awesome to know that there's sort of an in between.
So there was a point that you made, which was basically what happens when they're in high school and they've been like supported the whole way, but then they go to college. I think every year of high school is an attempt at leveling up, right? You're going to look at the level and rigor of your courses, and you're going to look for ways in which you can appropriately challenge yourself each additional year. And the skills that you had from seventh and eighth grade to transition to freshman year, sometimes they work, sometimes you fall flat on your face really fast in your study skills, and you have to up level straight away. Sometimes you're surviving enough or you have enough of the study skills or time management skills or executive functioning skills or content acquisition skills, right? Like in that first year that you get through. But then you're challenged in sophomore year because you appropriately leveled up for yourself that all of a sudden they don't work anymore.
Right.
So then that's when some additional interventions come in. Sometimes that's in a form of a tutor. Sometimes that's in a complete adjustment to the way that you studied for maybe it's your first AP class, maybe it's your first honors class. Maybe you went from sort of a on-level course to a college prep course, right? Like it depends on what the adjustment was.
Right.
And then those students have to adjust their viewpoint. And as each year progresses, you have these additional up levels that will occur. And then in senior year, you're applying to college, you're taking your classes. Sometimes you're participating in a sport. Fall semester sports are the worst during that time. It's really hard. And it's a lot. And all of a sudden, they're really tested in their ability to manage their time. And that's when I see if they didn't pace themselves appropriately, that's when I see sort of the crush of all of that happening.
Okay. So the first year and the last year are when people tend to need you. Is it, I'm going off script again here, but I'm thinking of so much as you're talking. Um, is this a matter of if we reach out to you well in advance, your goal is to like work yourself out of a job and it's for a brief period of time and we never need you again? Or is this like you're with a student maybe the entire 4 years, or is it just variable?
It depends. My ultimate goal is that I can help families avoid issues in programmatic planning the earlier that they work with me. I'll give you a great example. I have a family this year, two sophomore students. One student had Algebra 1 as a freshman and Geometry as a sophomore. But the problem is with standardized testing that if you don't have Algebra 2, by the time sophomore year happens or junior year, depending, you're not going to be able to get to pre-calculus or calculus in senior year. And it depends on the trajectory they're on and where they want to potentially go after high school. But this student is aiming high.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the plan would be graduating with calculus. And oftentimes in sophomore year, you can double up with geometry and algebra 2. And in the course selection freshman year, that wasn't brought up. And so now the student would have graduated with pre-calculus. But for the prerequisites for the schools where she would like to apply, she needs calculus. She can't just graduate with pre-calculus. So she enrolled in an Algebra 2 class mid-year. She has 8 months to complete the Algebra 2 class. And as a result, she'll then be in pre-calculus in her junior year, calculus in her senior year. We caught that in her sophomore year. Had we not caught it when we did, the things that she is ready to go for based on all of her other academic curriculum wouldn't have been the prerequisites wouldn't have been met.
Got it. Okay. Very good example.
So so that's like one example. Another student, for example, we identified IEP and 504 supports that she needed, but that only happened at the conclusion of junior year. And so there were 6 months where pre-calculus was just not doing well. But had those IEP supports been identified significantly earlier in a learning profile that we would have really gotten to know freshman or sophomore year, she could have had so many more supports for her entirety of high school that would have decreased anxiety, co-occurring of some depression, right? These other things that were happening throughout her high school experience.
Absolutely. And I would presume the later those things are identified and implemented, the more likely it is they're going to need to really be set up for college.
Right.
Yeah.
And every college is a snowflake and their requirements are all different, right? So, it's some schools are like the hardest rigor you could ever possibly have, and that's what they expect out of you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids are robots. Like, how do they do that and keep that pace throughout high school and not break?
Right.
And then do amazing things in their extracurriculars. But then there are other schools who are like, I want you to lean into wholly who you are, and they're really healthy, wonderful environments. And those kids just grow and flourish in those environments after high school.
Yeah.
That's much more aligned.
Do people typically already know where they want to go when they come to you? Or are they saying like, here's my profile, here's what I need. Where do you know that could suit that? Like, what if a kid has no idea where they want to go? They just know they want to go.
This is a great question. So sometimes
another one I did not prepare you for.
No, that's okay. I'm good with this. So I would say families will come with some name, and there's usually stickers on cars that they see, or they attended a school, or a family member attended a school, and they know of maybe reputation, but not quality. And so our job is to educate everyone, because it is a partnership. It is not me helping a student. It is me helping a family through the process so they can be really educated on what are the outcomes and what's the likelihood, but also, is this the right fit place based on the student? So we always start with an academic profile review. We look at extracurriculars, we look at career choices, we look at the names that they come to me with, and we see based on data, because we have to use some data, right? What's the likelihood of admission based on the information that you've shared with me? Okay, tell me what it is socially, emotionally, academically you need in a place What are the community vibes that you need in a place? What are I would call it the rah-rah sisboomba that you need in a place, right? Like the
Is that the
sports
technical
team.
term?
That's my term. I always call it that. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "The
I like that.
cheerleading,"
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you need a football school? Do you need a basketball school? Like, could you
Mhm.
deal with like ice hockey? Like, that's really fun sport to cheer for too. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of culture do you need? And then
Mhm.
once we put their non-negotiables down, then it's my turn to produce a list. And
Oh,
I've
okay.
visited somewhere around 1,000 colleges at this point, both
That's
in
what
the
I was
US,
wondering is
Canada,
like, have you
and
seen them
Europe.
all? Do you know them all? Because I'm touring schools for my son right now, high schools. Um, and it's a very time consuming, overwhelming process. It would have been so nice to say to someone, here's who he is. Here's what we want. Just tell us where to go. So that sounds just amazing.
And the beauty now is that I've worked with students for so long, I can connect my students with either someone who is currently on campus or someone who is recently on campus.
Right.
That they can then say, give me the skinny. What's the
Yeah.
lowdown? I don't want college confidential or niche telling me. I need you telling me. And what
Yeah.
did you get out of this environment?
Right.
And that has become such a
That's
great
great.
connection for my students because now
Mhm.
they're making friends that are generational who can then introduce them to somebody at that college campus that maybe they're interested in attending, right? So
Yeah.
that has become a huge benefit.
So great.
But I think you have to know what you want out of the experience to then think about committing that kind of money
Yeah.
to that next step.
Yep.
Because what
Exactly.
is the goal? What is the outcome?
Right. So, as a parent who's currently pretending and in denial that I'm about to have a transitional age child, he turns 14 in March. And the reason I'm in denial, just to clarify, is like we don't even know where he needs to be right now. So I can't really wrap my head around like after the now, but we're gonna have that situated soon, and then I can think about the next. But like, what are I guess my first question is when, like, if it were up to you, obviously you get people that you wish had come to you sooner, but if you could choose, when would a family be seeking out this type of support in order for everyone to see the most benefit? Is it now?
It's course selection in eighth grade when they're making course selection for their high school experience.
Okay.
Because at that point, you can lay out all of their options,
Hmm.
everything that they could potentially want to do, how they're going to fill their day, how they're going to design their time, and get them excited about their opportunity in high school to
Okay.
maximize their experience, maximize their social experience, maximize their emotional intelligence, right? Like
Hmm.
all of the things that they could potentially involve themselves in. And that's not, that's, yes, it's academics, but that's all the other things that grow with you for those 4 years when you're attending high school. So I think once you all of that out, what are the possibilities? Then you can see how that can be adjusted to design the time that you're spending in school and how you want to spend it. It
Right.
also gives them some sense of control over what they choose because then it becomes a higher level of engagement if there's choice. If
Right.
it's getting
Right.
dictated or told in terms of like how you're spending your extracurricular experience or your elective courses, right? Like all of that is a choice.
Mhm.
Um, but if they're getting told what to do, then it's like, I don't want to do that because you're telling me to
Right.
do that
They
versus
want to
like they
see
get to
what they
choose
need
it.
to see.
Right. So as long
Yeah.
as they have some say, I think that that's really important. And then also that they know that there's a mentor that aligns with them, that can support them, that is cheering for them,
Right.
and that is going to check in regularly. So my
Mhm.
schedule when I start with an eighth grade family, course selections this time of year. So as they're transitioning to high school, sometime in the spring is when we would have a conversation about what high school looks like and what they would choose. Then we do a check-in in fall, September, October, which is a busy time in terms of college counseling, but it's worth the time. Are you in the right adjustment of courses? Is it too high? Are you not being challenged enough? Right?
Mhm.
Because there is a time frame that you can make some adjustments.
Right.
What about the clubs and activities? Can you get involved in something? Is there something that meets once a month? Is there something that meets once a week, right? What does that look like? And how is that time structured?
Right.
Then when course selection comes around again in January, February of freshman year, we meet again. Okay, halfway of the year check in. How are things going? Can we maybe challenge ourselves? What are some of the other electives we could utilize next year? What are some of the things you want to do this summer? What's your summer going to look like? You're
Right.
generally too young to work, and you may be interested in pursuing some coding, or could you volunteer as a camp coach? Like, what can we do to structure your summer so it's something that you are choosing? Make all those
Got it.
course selection choices and then go into that. And then as you get into sophomore year, check in the fall. And then we really start into what's your life starting to look like? What are some of the career ideas that are percolating for you? And putting all of that in front of you. And then it really kind of gets into planning for life after high school because it takes a couple of years to plan what that's going to look like.
Yeah. So I think what I hear you saying is really when we're thinking about college planning or career planning or vocation, whatever it's going to be, post-secondary life, it really is more of a high school discussion. We're not waiting till the end. Like we do need to think about it very early on.
I just wrote a blog article that's going to get posted here in the next couple of weeks with a friend and colleague, Dr. Lily Hall. She is a child psychologist, and she does a lot of executive function. And we did a whole guided path of what are some of the questions you can start to ask, and what are some of the tells that your child is also ready to have these conversations
Hmm.
with questions that can then start help going into talking about career, talking about life after high school, getting into what do you want your life to look like? What kind of income would you need, right? Like having some of those transparent conversations. So we talked about some of the developmental clues that also we're not forcing
Great.
the conversation, but we're making it so it's a developmentally appropriate conversation that aligns with the child. And that was really important for me to think through.
Yeah, and I'd love to share it when it's available. Which makes me think of another question I didn't ask you in advance. Does the student need to want to have this conversation? Is it often just being driven by the parents and these teenagers are like, "Ugh, I don't want to think about this yet, or I don't want to go to college. I'm not like, can you work with a student who's like not super excited about this yet?
So the word that you're talking about is resistance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And resistance comes in different forms. Resistance is because it's being driven by somebody else and there's
Mm.
a stubbornness, right? Like kids don't know what they don't know, right? Like we have the
Mm-hmm.
benefit of hindsight because
Right.
we've lived it, right?
Right.
And we know what's coming for them, so we're trying to predict ahead and work ahead so then that way it's not all so much of a crunch, right? So when we face resistance, it's because they don't know what they don't know. And sometimes there is just a nervousness about leaving the nest
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
they're going they're going to have to think about leaving the thing that is most comfortable to them in the world.
Right.
And so normalizing uncomfortable conversations long before we start with college or leaving high school, what does that look like? I think bringing up career, finances, these are all things that seem a little less hot button as the race to what looks like life after high school, especially if you apply to college, is. So if that actually starts in freshman year, sophomore year, ninth, 10th grade, that actually makes a lot of sense because then they become a little bit more primed for it.
Right.
The
Right. Okay.
resistance I see now in my students is the result of the pandemic.
Hmm. Yeah. Because kids are
Socially
stressed.
and emotionally, they're stressed. They're 18 to 24 months behind. Skills that this group would have gained 4 years ago. So if they're eighth graders now, they were in fourth grade. Well, that's like learning how to do group work. That's learning how to communicate effectively with your peers, right? And if some of that
Right.
persists throughout middle school life, and then they get into high school, it's learning how to advocate for themselves,
Yeah.
learning some of the social cues to pick up on. So I see a lot of that kind of, they get quiet and they hold it close and they just can't have that
Talk.
conversation. So I think Yeah. Have some of those other conversations that are a little easier. Like, what does it take to like have a budget? Like, what does that look like?
Right. Yeah.
Or
So
how much
I'm going to
money do you need
go.
to buy your groceries? You know,
Yeah,
good.
right. Like knowing the cost of things, especially right now when everything is so crazy expensive. Let me go a little out of order while we're on the topic of resistance. So I think our son's resistance currently is coming from, like I said, the fact that it took so long to get his diagnoses and get some supports in place, and even now they're not sufficient. So it's like the end result of a very prolonged struggle that has impacted his self-esteem and of course how he feels about school and learning and his intelligence, all that stuff. It's so hard. So kind of two different reasons kids might be resistant. In a perfect world, we're going to get him somewhere where he remembers how smart and capable he is and remembers that he loves learning and changes his mind about what he wants to do after. But it does bring up a question for me of what about kids who have learning differences and an IEP, and they obviously you can get scaffolding, hopefully some form of it anywhere, but could students need a particular type of college? Are some colleges better at accommodating and scaffolding? And does preparation for that student look different? And what do parents need to know? And like, however you want to, that's a lot of questions rolled into one.
No, that's actually great. So I'm gonna name drop, and I love like this is why I keep just saying resources or names of people because I'm like, go Google these people, go like talk to these
Right?
people too. Because I did when I did my college counseling degree program, certification program, I purposely interned at Delaware Valley Friends with Hallie Charlone. She is an amazing resource. It is an amazing school for students who learn and think differently, who are absolutely positively bright, like they're incredibly bright. And I think that's why I say like this like sort of shopping mall of traditional public school model, right, doesn't fit everybody. And that's why there's so many choices. And actually why in where we live in Pennsylvania is just so wonderful for that as well. Like there are so many choices to choose from. Um,
Absolutely.
so she really helped me understand colleges that offer incredible supports. So if somebody has very high need in terms of dyslexia, dysgraphia, executive function, processing speed, just like learning supports, a landmark college is a wonderful place. Curry College is a wonderful place. McDaniel in Maryland is a wonderful place. If it's a student who's being really successful, but needs that incredible coaching and support, like I mentioned, the reverse calendaring or, um, just the mentorship or an additional advisor or somebody who's going to meet with them twice a week, like a Marist is awesome. They do a fabulous job. If you read Lauren Pope's book, Colleges That Change Lives, or Sinus is a wonderful place where students all conduct research. They all get very heavily involved in supporting the professors that they're learning from. So that's another awesome option. And it doesn't have to be just tiny colleges either. Like Arizona State is known for its SALT program. It's a really wonderful learning support program. Yeah.
Well, I call her my niece. She's actually, I guess, my second cousin, but I have someone there in the family right now.
And it's great. They do a wonderful job with students. There's also the work colleges, which believe in the triad. You learn, you really work on yourself, and you really work on your community, and you apply what you learn to the work in the community. So, College of the Ozarks, Warren Wilson, um, there are a number of colleges in that consortium too. So, I think when you have a student who learns differently, there are many different places that you can seek support. So just knowing how you can then go and seek support and what that looks like. There's actually a new searchable website called Pathlytics. It
Oh,
is wonderful and it actually gives a survey. I think they now have, right at this moment, 400 surveys for over 100 institutions that provide support.
that's
And it's
awesome.
from a variety of different areas. So these are new emerging sort of, I
Yeah.
would say, a website that people can search. Also, if students don't test well, look at fair tests, look at their test optional list, right? Because you have
Mhm.
to make sure that your skills are going to align with the places that are really genuinely going to support you.
Yeah.
I've had students who have really, really thrived at like UNC Wilmington. They do a great job with their students and just encouraging them. Lynn University in Florida. So it depends on what your needs are, what your goals are, what your career path looks like. There are
Yeah.
plenty, there are schools, opportunities, training programs literally for everyone.
And I've never heard of probably 95% of what you just mentioned. So I could already see the benefit for our family would be like, I don't need to go learn all that and do all the legwork. And like you already know and can narrow it down and point us in the right direction. And that sounds so amazing. I think you were going to share what percentage of students that you work with have a learning difference, because that might be encouraging for for parents to know.
About half of my students have an LD.
That's just how
And
common it is.
that's how common it is. I would say that late diagnoses within my student cohort, about 20% were late diagnosed. And my definition of a late diagnosis is anytime second half of sophomore year onward. Because if it is an obvious LD, it usually gets identified in elementary school or maybe the first part of middle school. But when students mask really well, or they have
That
figured
was
out
us.
how to how to thrive, but then all of a
Mm,
sudden hit a wall academically,
yeah.
oftentimes it's because they have been coping with their current skills, and then their skills kind of hit an end point of where they're going to be functional. So,
Yes.
so I have about 20% of that 50% are late diagnosed students as well. So it's like
And did
teaching them the
you
skills.
have an example of a particular student who had a late diagnosis?
Yes. So the one that I mentioned a little bit earlier, who I adore, we identified the career scope, which is studying sharks. So excited. So we had to find
Love
all
it.
the best shark research schools and shark research
Very
programs.
specific.
Very specific. I love a specific task. I can now go on for days about all the shark schools. So, but for her, there were a lot of things that were happening, and it was the pre-calculus that was the
Mm,
issue. And I'm like, gosh, like, you know, all the content, you're proving to me all the content. What's happening here? So then
mm,
put them in touch with somebody who could go through the full battery of tests. And this student had been advocating for themselves for a very long time, and even to their pediatrician, can you please give me a test to be able to diagnose if I'm on the autism spectrum? They finally did the battery of testing: autism spectrum, ADHD, OCD, tic disorder, anxiety, and co occurring depression. And half of those diagnoses were late diagnoses. And now the student has wraparound support, post secondary supports that are already in place that we're already working on. So when she gets to school this coming fall, feels ready to be successful. We identified what housing needs are there, like a like single room housing instead of sharing a room. So the low sensory time, the decompression can be in
mm.
place.
Super
Um,
important.
super important. And it was just like, wow, like her academic outcomes changed in math, especially because there was sort of math phobia that developed as a result of what was happening. And we're in a better place. So I am so
She
excited for
sounds like
her.
a
But that
twin of my guy. They have almost the same profile. That is really,
And
really awesome.
anyway, so I'm very excited for her. Oh, and then the other thing is because we were so intentional about space, place, size, supports, all the wraparounds, and she's such a strong student, she already has $45,000 a year in scholarships
Wow.
coming her way.
That's such an awesome success story.
Yeah.
That's just, you don't have to sell yourself. The story, the story does it for you. That's so fantastic. I mean, I get on a soapbox and I get so worked up about these kids that are diagnosed late, especially if parents were advocating for them, kids were advocating for themselves, but we can't go back, right? It happens. It happens too often, but I'm really glad that she got some answers, got some support. That's amazing. What about a gap year? I hear about this a lot. Maybe a kid just isn't interested, isn't ready. Maybe it's a learning difference and poor support. Maybe they just want a break. Is that like Is that a thing? Is it a good idea? Is there a way to maximize that?
That is such a great question. So I wish gap years were a standard part of the conversation in the US. It is a pretty standard part of the conversation in Canada, Australia, New Zealand,
Mm.
I'd say to some degree in the UK, and mainland Europe. And I'll just give you sort of a quick difference of the US system versus like a European system. European colleges are typically 3 years, unless in your UK system is typically 3 years, unless you need a foundational year because you didn't have some of the prereqs. The
Mhm.
Scottish system is what our system's based on. It's a 4-year system. So like think
Okay.
St. Andrews or University of Glasgow or Edinburgh, they're all 4-year systems. So what happens in other countries is that students will have a career intention in mind. They'll have a potential major in mind. It'll be very identified. And oftentimes they'll go through the application process and either have a structured gap year built into their plan, or during their structured gap year, that's when they go to apply to college. In the US, it makes it harder, right? Because once we graduate from high school, we don't have the same ability to go into the school or college counseling office to be able to get our transcripts or letters of recommendation. Or at that point, maybe some teachers have retired, right? Like things, it just gets a little bit harder to do some of the paperwork. So, what
Mhm.
happens typically in the US with a gap student, for the ones who come to me, is that we will have a short list of colleges that they're applying to that we know even a year from now and their mind changed, still would be happy to attend. And then often defer their acceptance to that whatever school that they decide on a year and create a structured gap year program. That can look like some sort of structured volunteer program where you're
Mhm.
working with students in inner city schools, or you're working on a mission trip or something like that. And then others who go and travel. So maybe it's more of a structured travel environment.
Mhm.
So it depends on what the needs are and what are the goals. You usually can't do college courses, but you can do some sort of learning environment or some sort of structured travel as a result. So they
Mhm.
could go work in a farm, like eco farm in Costa Rica, or
Mhm.
they could go learn about culinary, at a different place. So there's like lots of different choices when it comes to a gap year. And for a lot of
Yeah.
students, they just need that time so they're not so overwhelmed.
Right. And maybe, for kids who are a little developmentally delayed, you know, another year to sort of mature, right?
Right.
Yeah. And, obviously college is a huge investment. Everyone's familiar with that concept. And I hear so many adults say, like, yeah, I went to college for X, but then I realized I, wanted to do Y and I changed gears. Like, that would maybe give you time to really figure out. I feel like it's a little unfair that you have to decide so early on before you even had the experiences that might direct you one way or another. So I assume that could be a benefit from a structured gap year experience as well.
Well, and I think I agree. I have a student who went to GW, who went through freshman year, um, needed additional executive function skills, did not actively go after them or, for himself, freshman year, struggled, decided to take this entire year and work with AmeriCorps, and
Mm.
has grown exponentially as a result of that work, and is
Yeah.
ready to hit the ground running next fall and return back to school.
Mm.
So I think normalizing the growth, because our frontal lobes develop until age 25, 26. Like that's impulse
Right?
control. That's like that supports decision making skills. Like how can you know exactly what you want to do when you're 16, 17, 18 years old for
Right.
something that is going to be predicting 7, 8 years from now? I think some of the skills you want to learn, or some of the environments you want to occupy, or exposure to the career path, because at the end of the day, you're spending 30 to 50 years working. So like that to me is the ultimate outcome. That's what's really important. What kind of work environments do you want to occupy? And is
Right.
that trade school? Is that apprenticeship? Is that, gaining a skill that is maybe a 2-year associate's going and working and coming back for the rest of the degree? Like that,
Mhm.
that's all great. when I was choosing grad school for the third time around, I'm like, I'm like, okay, I wanted to do a counseling degree. I needed something that was KCREP certified because that's kind of the foundational distinction. I wanted to make sure I picked a KCREP program. At this point, I've paid for college. I've paid for a lot of school. And I didn't want to pay. And no offense to the schools. I love these schools. They're wonderful schools. But like, if it's your second, third master's degree, like I'm not going to pay $90K for a master's. So
Correct.
I chose for me what was going to offer me a cohort exposure that was multi-generational, multicultural, like varied belief systems, varied levels of experience. And I went to Rosemont College. I had a fabulous experience with that. And I love that. And I'm so grateful for it. But that's different than my Lehigh, Penn, Rutgers, like other backgrounds, that I have had, right? So I think it depends on where you are in your life and what you want out of it. And also, what's the budget? Like, what are you going to pay for and what's the outcome? Because I think a lot of people get so excited about applying to schools. They're going to be $400,000. Like, that's a lot of money. If your student doesn't finish, you still probably paid 100 or 200,000 and you don't have a completed degree. So like, we need to make sure that they're going to be successful when they get there.
Right. Absolutely. This has been super helpful for me. So I'm hoping it is for others as well. And I am saying out loud to the universe and everyone listening, I will get on this as soon as we help him land where he needs to land, which will hopefully happen in the next few weeks. But let me ask you one more question before we wrap up. You brought up so many good points today, but if you could answer this with your personal hat on, not your professional hat, what's one thing that you've learned on this journey, either your own learning journey or supporting others, that you just wish that you knew sooner and you want to help parents and families right now?
Where do I start?
I know.
I think for me, accept help when it's offered. Sometimes seeking advice, and if it resonates with you, leaning into that advice. It's okay to like sort of crowdsource some advice, and you'll know what feels right to you in terms of that. I wish I knew that sooner. Whether it's business coaching help or just connecting with other professionals or just building new friendships as a 40-year-old, right? Like, I think just, sort of being willing to sort of accept some of those olive branches. I think that's important. One thing, I'm not a parent, I'm a dog mom, but I've been in schools obviously for 2 decades. I think it's really important to know that you are the expert of your child. And if you are the squeaky wheel and you know what your child needs, you have that instinct to support them the right way. Lean into that. And I wish my parents sort of had that instinct in 80s, 90s parenting. I think they would have recognized the needs that
wasn't a thing in 80s, 90s parenting.
It was like, you'll figure it out.
Every kid for themselves.
Yes. So I think like if I had known what I needed or had known the supports or maybe some of the social supports or academic supports that I needed, I would have been more successful or more defined in my vision sooner, rather than sort of like flowing to get to the place where I am now, which is a very fulfilled, happy, professional and personal place. So I wish like some of that was a part of my universe previously. But again, it's why you're doing this podcast. Like, I wish I knew this thing, right? But I think that's all of our reflective journey. And as long as we're being willing to reflect on it and grow from it, I think that's the best that we can do.
Absolutely. And that is the point of this podcast. It's so hard to have, like, if something isn't put on your radar, how are you supposed to think about it, plan for it? Like, that's the point of all of this is like, hey, you don't know that this is coming and you don't maybe know you should be thinking about this now or soon. So let's just start the wheels turning. And you can't ask questions that you don't know to ask. So yeah, I think, we both just want to reach families earlier and say like, hey, I know you got a lot on your plate, but don't forget to think about this. And it's really a relief for me personally to know that services like yours, and maybe this is unique to you or not, it isn't just designed for people who are adamant that they want this 4-year path. They're setting the bar really high. It's really for everyone to land where they need to land, doing what they need to be doing, and supported in it, and know their options. And I think that's so fantastic. Awesome. Wonderful. I usually end with a list of things that I learned the hardest way, but you stole most of them when you picked your things that you wanted to share. So I'm going to read them anyway, just for emphasis.
Oh my gosh,
and now
did I steal them from you?
you did, but they're really, really good things. So we're just going to double down, and I'm going to emphasize these things because this is how true they are. And then I think I'm going to mix up my list going forward. But I agree with you. Thank you so much for your time and expertise. I hope families reach out. I will let them know how to find you in the show notes. And parents, the list of things that I have learned the hardest way, in agreement with Lynn, is accept help when it's offered. I will add to that, ask for it when it isn't, because it doesn't always get offered. You are the expert on your child, your student, so trust your gut. And if you have to be the squeaky wheel. See, our lists were the same.
Oh my God. And it's so funny because I was looking at mine. I'm like, oh my gosh, totally agree.
Right?
Oh.
It's a really good, I took time on that list. Everyone will hear me say those things over and over and over again. And I don't know if that's helpful or annoying, but I really want people to take that to heart. I trusted my gut. I doubted my gut, so many times along the way, and let people make me question myself, or like, well, I'm not an expert on this topic, but you spend far more time with your child, your student, than anyone else. You know what they need, you know how they learn. And I was so opposed to seeking help, accepting help. I wanted to be a superwoman, which of course only leads to like burnout and resentment and all sorts of other ugly, ugly things. And I was quiet. I was not a person who would, speak my mind or rock the boat or make anyone uncomfortable or have hard conversations. And I think my son suffered for that. So I'm on my own journey of learning to, not make myself small and quiet, particularly if it's something having to do with him. It's not easy. It's way easier said than done for some of us. But that is a really good list. So take it to heart, print it out, put it up somewhere, work on it. And I'm glad our lists align. Lynn, thank you so much. Listeners, I will be back soon with more things that I and other experts and other parents wish that we had learned sooner, so you don't have to learn them the hard way. And that is all for now. Thanks, everybody.